super important to give folks that have been on the street an opportunity to live the life, right? That they want for themselves. And when you've been on the street for a long time, that takes an immense amount of effort. And so Mesa was built really with the intention of moving upstream, right? How do we start working with these kids, really, these 18 to 24-year-olds who haven't had the opportunity to live a good, solid life, and say, okay, let's invest everything that we can in giving you that opportunity. Right. So, the space that Mesa has invested in does not look like a lot of the interventions that we have, currently. Right. We're on a 10-acre farm in Ojai, where we've built not, boxes to live in, really, really beautiful homes, and thinking about the whole person. Right. We're not just thinking about how do we put a roof over your head? How do we help you get a job?
Right. Well, that solves everything. That's what I feel like. That's what we all think is like, if you give a homeless person, well, just convert these hotels into, apartments. They'll be fine.
And it's really important to help people get off the street. No doubt about it. But I think that sometimes we look at that as like the existence of homelessness as a problem, right? And then that's how you respond to it. How do we remove this problem? Right. Not necessarily how do we humanize and treat folks the way, really simple stuff, right? How do we treat folks the way we want to be treated?
Yeah, I think, too, I want to go back a little bit to the idea of housing as well, because we talk about housing, but it's not housing, it's a home. There's a difference between having a house and a home. People come from houses that were failed homes. We need to redefine what a home is. We keep talking about a housing crisis. We have a home crisis, meaning what is happening in those homes? What is the violence in those homes? What are the conditions and the disrepair and the failed, families where divorce rates and the fallout from that, substance use that comes from those homes, all the things that have been the fallout from what happened. Even at times, just to be kind of stark, I'll call a house where you came from, a home you came, the scene of the crime. Like you were on the streets because of the home you came from. So they have to reinterpret what a home is. How do they walk through that door when every door they've walked through, there's been something bad on the other side of that door? When I've asked people, I've had to build crisis teams for years, right, and bring people off the streets. I've gone out onto the streets and talked to thousands of people on the streets, and they trust me. I have to get them to trust me to walk through that gate with me and go through that door. When every time they did, they would say, every time I reach out for help, my life has gotten worse. You have to be willing to hear that truth of a system or a family system or whatever system failed them and reinterpret that way. And the weight that, people like Dan and I feel, and this is, I'm saying this from a humility place because there's times I can feel the burden of it, is we have to earn that trust with them. And we have to maintain that trust with them in a system that fails them. And then they look at us, and the minute it doesn't go right, they look at us and say, well, why didn't that work? Right. And we're trying to reinforce in them, they're going to have to figure that out. Because even when I work with people in recovery, I built sobering centers, worked with meth and fentanyl use, all of this stuff, right? Is we're asking people to recover and go right back to the system that didn't recover. You got to recover, but not the system. Not the family that harmed you. They didn't change. You have to change. It's an extraordinary thing to ask any of us to do. And we're asking people who are homeless or in these situations to do things. Are we doing that? The conditions we have to create are extraordinary and loving and trusting and maintain that trust. I feel that responsibility. Yep. It really burned me out. I lost my own way in it of feeling like, that I was letting people down because I was just turning them back to the system where things fell apart for them again, and having to build that strength and that resiliency up in them to go out there and be able to face those things and rely on themselves more and not be angry at the system.
And one way I think that we do it is by building community.
Yeah.
Right? So,
exactly.
Mesa can't, and other organizations that are doing this work, I would argue, can't do it on their own.
No.
Right? We've got to welcome people in, build a community around the folks that haven't had that, right? And so not to pump you up too much. But this is an area really where exactly right. where you're a part of the community and contributing to the, I won't even call it a solution, but contributing to that in and of itself, creating safe spaces for kids who are growing up to see healthy adults in their life that are contributing to their own well-being.
Right. And I think the key to that is having the community at large understand that this actually makes everyone better. This makes all of us better.
That's the real work.
And I know there's such a, NIMBY, not in my backyard thing with, homeless stuff. But to be able to have something like this in a community, embrace it, realize that then you are making 13 young adults that are going to come into your community as grown-up adults and who are going to be in a better place and better able to support the rest of the community better. Just the outcomes are so much better. And like, why don't we want to strengthen our community?